Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the World Politics Show. I'm Nick Palavita. I'll be one of your hosts today, and I'm broadcasting now from Budapest, Hungary, which is on the other side of the world at the NAPTI conference, which is the National Association of Professional Television Executives. With this today, I also have Rick Rosner, who is broadcasting, I believe, from Los Angeles, which is
Yeah,
on the other side of the world. And some of the people here said, well, they're members of some organization that does something over in LA. But what I find out very interesting, first of all, I have not kept up with any of the world politics. I've been to meetings every day,
all
every
right.
hour.
So the maybe
I
the
have no
biggest.
idea what's going
All right. So um, Israel and Iran are still launching stuff at each other, which made Trump so mad that he dropped the F bomb on live TV, I believe. And also, it's emerging that the U.S. bombing of the nuclear installations, didn't do much damage. Uh, Maybe set according to
on.
intelligence assessments. Yeah, it only set Iran back a few months. So, but it's still early. They still have to dig out and see, I guess, what's left underground. But nobody knows where except people in Iran are in charge of it, where the 400 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium is. It's not a lot. It doesn't take much. It takes this much uranium, 90% enriched uranium, to make a bomb, and they've got enough to make, I don't know, half a dozen bombs. But that's still only it weighs a lot, but it doesn't take up a lot of space. So you don't want to keep it in one place because that'll blow it up. But anyway, it's easy to hide in a giant country.
Well, what does Iran need with uranium to begin with?
They keep claiming they want to do nuclear reactors for peaceful.
What? Okay, time out, counselor. What do they need nuclear reactors for?
You mean because since they're sitting on a whole 80 million tons of oil?
Oh, really? So what you're telling me, counselor, is they have plenty of energy without a nuclear reactor. Would that be correct?
Well, they're the size of Alaska, except they're close to the equator, so the sun shines on them all the time. If they wanted to do solar,
Oh, they could do solar, couldn't they, counselor? Is that correct?
yeah. Also, it's 90 million people in a giant country, so they probably have room for wind farms if they want to.
So they could have wind farms. So I'll go back to my original question, counselor. What do they need to enrich uranium for?
They want to be a nuclear nation. They want to
Thank,
have.
thank you, thank you, counselor. And then my question is, why didn't we take out all their installations years ago? Why did we wait till yesterday?
All I know is about this is what I read on Twitter, that we've been capable, we've had the ability to do it for decades, but if we did, it would further destabilize the Middle East. I don't know if I buy that, but
Destabilized meaning what? And what evidence do you have of that?
when I think of destabilizing, I think of how Iraq and Iran spent decades battling each other and depleting all their militaries in this constant war because they're right next to each other.
So I go back to my original premise. What does stabilization? And what
Well,
reason do they have? Any other reason than just to create a nuclear bomb and create more havoc? Honestly, I'm glad I'm not the president because all those nuclear facilities, if I was president, would have been taken out yesterday. Every one of them. Every bloody one of them. And then we can go to the negotiation table if they want to. If they don't want to, I really don't care.
Well, apparently Trump got a big victory because speaking of politics, apparently he headed to the NATO summit, and in Europe, and many of the countries in Europe have agreed to his defense spending demands, which is that he wants them to put in more money of their finances into whatever defense is going
all
on.
right,
So,
well, hold on a second. All right, so Trump says that's because of him.
right.
I would say it's because of Russia attacking Ukraine. So I guess I think Trump wants countries to spend 5% of their GDP on
Yes.
defense. And I think your country, Nick, Spain, is like saying, no, thank you, which makes a certain kind of sense because Spain is not very close to Russia at all. But
No,
if I were Finland or
different
Denmark,
story.
yeah, so or Latvia,
Estonia, Latvia,
Lithuania,
Lithuania, all different stories.
yeah,
But in terms of Iran, they have no business enriching uranium. There's no business for us to even negotiate that. It's a non-negotiable point. If we find it, we destroy it. And then if you want to negotiate about other things, let's do it. We'll talk.
There are
But that's not
3
negotiable.
points. Negotiations are all about 3 points. Number one, it's Iranian nuclear program. There will be none of it. Finished, done. Second is ballistic missiles. Finished, done. Just to complete the job, they need maybe 2, 3 more days. That's done. And number 3 is absolutely impossible for Iran to support the terrorist organization around the world, particularly Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis, and all that garbage. These 3 points, Iran once agrees to these 3 points, the end of it. Now there is a nice, beautiful, peaceful Iran with its religion, its language. They can do anything what they want except these 3 points. That's all there is to it. Agree.
Hey, Sasha, I got a question for you and Nick because I know Nick's in touch with the I forgot the gentleman's name, but he's the guy that has the Facebook page about China and everything along those lines. I know that we call the show on Tuesday.
Oh, Stephen Tan.
Stephen Tan with Ukraine, Russia, and China and everything. And apparently they are very much worried about the Iran situation because they have a heavy reliance on Iranian oil imports. So I was just wondering, when you're talking to these people on your Facebook pages, what are they saying about this? Because apparently they get the majority of their oil from Iran.
But beautiful. Iran is conceding to these 3 points. Iran will most likely will be relieved of all the or majority of the sanctions. Now they can start legally to send their oil, sell it to China and whoever they want to sell. They will become a normal country, normal economy. This is all about to bring Iran into society of normal countries with a normal business. This is all what's about. Now, if Iran will resist, there will be the end of regime. Now, a lot of people are talking about, okay, you can do this or that, but never ever discuss to change regime in Iran. You are fools. Because if they don't agree to this fundamental 3 points, there must be a change of regime as soon as possible, immediately, next 45 minutes. You understand that?
No, there definitely got to be a change in regime, and I think a
And
lot of
Sasha,
people
I see
agree
no
with that.
problem with that.
Hey,
I absolutely see no problem with that.
no, and I think that's a valid point. I do have a question for both of you on a political front that's involving France of all things, and I know that's not that far from you in Spain. And partially, I'm not saying altogether because it was a lot of other things. That was a horrible attack that Ukraine suffered at a musical festival and everything. But Rick, did you hear about this? Apparently, there is a terrifying trend emerging as musical festival fans around the country and around the world are suffering mysterious needle attacks. So apparently, just recently, over 100 people were jabbed with syringes. Who knows what the heck was in the syringes at French Music Festival? And apparently, this is a new trend that is going on and everything. So, is this terrorism attacks? What's going on here?
I don't know. It could be one lunatic. It could be 3 lunatics working together. Let's get back to Iran for a second.
Let's see Iran. Yeah.
So
what do you got?
We screwed up with Iran. That Iran was a westernized country, but we supported the Shah of Iran, but we didn't keep him in check against his own people. And really, it wasn't our job to do that. But at the same time, what happened because he was an asshole to his own people,
right?
So the Shah, we installed the Shah in the 50s. because we didn't like because the previous leader took over. He nationalized the oil companies there, which means he took them away from the oil companies and put them under government control.
Right.
So we arranged a coup where the old king's family was brought back in, and under the Shah, Iran was very westernized. You always see pictures from the 70s where women are walking around in mini skirts in Tehran. But he had a secret police force that brutalized the population and radicalized the population. And in 1979, when Carter was president, they overthrew the country.
Yep.
And Rick, isn't part of the problem? It's the same thing as Cuba. Is the elite do well in those countries when they are in control, and the people like the Cuban government during that day, or even the Iranian government, yeah, the elite do really well and everything. But the problem is that there was a serious class divide. In my
if you watch the Godfather movies, you know that in the 50s and before, Cuba was America's playground. We went there to bang hookers, to go to casinos, and the poor population eventually had enough, and they overthrew, I guess, a guy named Batista, and Fidel Castro got installed, and he made friends with the Soviet Union. They made friends with him. Meanwhile, we kept trying to kill him or overthrow him.
And I want to come back to Ukraine and everything, Sasha.
And now, rather than having rich and poor people, Cuba has only one type of class: poor people. That's great.
Yeah.
I can tell you, in Budapest, it's right now part of the European Union, and it looks like they're doing really well. But you can see
hold on a second, because I've got some friends that have visited. I've got some friends that have visited Cuba.
Liberal thoughts. These are these old, stupid concrete buildings that are still there. Now, that means housing for all, so that was good. But they have a lot of old, stupid buildings, and they still have a very old train system. It's new, it's clean, so it works, but it's old and stupid. So what happens is the communists get in, and they go, we're going to have everybody equally poor. Good luck. Yeah.
Like I said, they're not all equally poor. I do see your hand, Sasha, and everything, because I just had some friends that just came back from there, and my parents have been there. I think both of them have been there at one time or another, but I just had some friends that just came back from a visit to Cuba, because Cuba does have a lot of diplomatic visits, and these were artist friends of mine, and I'll get them to come in and tell us their assessment of what
it's like
now.
Mark, it's like all the Latin American countries. Venezuela would be the richest country in the world, except their leaders suck. Yeah, Sasha.
Yeah, Sasha.
Interesting story about Cuba. Many years ago, almost 40 years ago, it was 1986, Nava, my wife, was playing an interzonal chess tournament for World Championship.
Yeah.
And the tournament was held in Havana, in Cuba.
Yeah, right.
And we visited that, and it was well organized in a former Hilton hotel, which had, of course, a different name. Hotel was basically kept intact, except that air conditioner was not working, and it was really run down. But still, Hilton is Hilton, so it was okay. So what happened is there were a lot of Soviet grandmasters like Nana Alexandria, Yesiliani, and many others, Georgian stars. At that time, it was Soviet Union still. And on the closing ceremony, they knew that I'm playing piano, and they asked me to play something on piano in the closing ceremony. And I was probably a little bit naive at the time, and I played something what came to my mind. And you know what I played? I played the song New York, New York. There was a shock. In Cuba, you don't play music New York, New York. It was completely forbidden. It was anti-socialist music. It was anything. So they were a silence. Nobody could say a word, and I couldn't understand why until Nana Alexandria said, Sasha, you're a very brave man. Don't say in Cuba, New York, New York. Okay.
Well, yeah, Sasha, I believe in systems that work. As much as you want to throw, or anyone wants to throw rocks at Xi Jinping, all those people in China have done better under him. All the country has done better, and it works. No matter what you say, it doesn't matter. It works. Now you look at Cuba and Venezuela. It doesn't work. I mean, the thing is, whoever the leaders are, how can you take the richest country in the world and trash it? The name is Venezuela. And the next, that could be a very wealthy country, Cuba, same thing. Because in their brain, they're so liberal. They make John Cena or wherever this guy comes on look to be, you know, like a right wing dude. And they believe, they have all these weirdo beliefs how economic systems work, that it doesn't work. And you know, capitalism may not be good at extreme, and I understand that. But let me tell you, communism isn't good either on the extremes, and that's what they got. And is all I can say. Too bad for them. And I just won't go to countries like that. Screw them.
You just won't go to
You know,
countries
but
like that.
I'm not going to support them either.
You'll stay in
I'm
Spain.
going
Spain's
to
got
call them
its
what they
own
are.
problems
You're
and
out of
everything.
there, baby.
But I did have a question
Out of
for
there.
Sasha, and it's based on what I understand is going to be taking place tomorrow and everything. So apparently, and I know they were supposed to meet before doing certain conferences and everything like that, but apparently Zelensky will finally have that sit-down meeting with Trump tomorrow. So what's going to happen in this meeting?
Good.
And we'll actually get some aid, because it is reported that they will be meeting on Wednesday, which is tomorrow. So what's going to happen on this meeting?
Hopefully they introduce B-2 bombers. B-2s are good. Cool.
Well, I think it all depends on in what mood Trump will be during the meeting.
Hey, Sasha, send a half a dozen B-2 bombers to Ukraine and see how long this war lasts. We'll take out the rest of the Russian Air Force. It won't
Well,
exist.
apparently, Sasha, I think y'all just took out a major ship. That's the other thing I saw, is that a major Russian ship was taken out earlier today and everything like that. So y'all just took out one of the Russian fleet. I know that they attacked inland on Ukraine, but I did see a report that they took out a major part of the fleet. I don't know if you saw that, Sasha, but that was earlier today.
Wonderful.
Wouldn't be surprised. Hey, speaking of Ukraine and Russia, what happened to the Iranian diplomat who went crying to Putin after the United States kind of blew up after uranium? What did Putin say? I didn't hear anything. Do you guys hear anything? I mean, I'm in Budapest now, going to conferences, and seriously, I didn't hear anything.
You know what
What
he said? That we are really sorry for you. This is very unfortunate that the third power attacked you without any reason whatsoever. They
Oh, my
didn't
Lord.
announce that there is a war against Iran. What was the grounds for the war against Iran? They just came and they bombed. We really feel sorry for you, and we offer you all support. It's moral support more than anything else. And you just keep it. We always on your side.
So Putin basically said, "They're your problem, buddy. Deal with it."
Well, speaking of your problem, and I know we've got a medical show on the network as well, but I did see that apparently there is a push, and maybe you'll be glad to hear this, Rick, since you did say there were some spikes going on in the West Coast, and despite the fact that there is a new panel filled with 8 vaccine critics, but there is a push to actually have vaccines and to vaccinate all Americans, despite RFK Jr. So apparently these professional medical people are getting together and are trying to find a way to make sure that people are vaccinated and that they have the proper insurance and everything like that.
So wait, this is an organization not working within the government. It's
Right.
All right. So I mean, that's a principle that we've been learning about, that when the government fails you, we have the technology where we didn't have it 50 years ago for people to get together and figure out solutions independent of the government.
Yeah, I agree. It's called a workaround. Okay, you have an idiot who heads up the Health and Human Resources. His name is Robert Kennedy III, or whatever the heck he is.
Right.
He's an attorney by trade. He has no knowledge of medicine whatsoever. Even admits, if anybody listens to me regarding medical procedures, they're stupid. And I agree with him. So I agree with RFK. You know, he's stupid. So don't listen to him. I don't listen to stupid people. And so it's good that the doctors who actually are knowledgeable, who know and understand communicable diseases, who studied it their entire life, will get together and do a bypass on those morons in Washington, D.C. It was perhaps Trump's worst pick ever. I mean, I would not pick him to run that. Have him go run EPA into the ground or something like that. But please, Health and Human Resources, when the guy doesn't understand health to save his life, and human resources. Are you serious? And the media, this is how bad they are. Fox, I shouldn't say that because we're working Fox. Okay. So I'll be nice to Fox right now. But the media, how bad they are. Okay. Not pointing it out. In other words, the thing is, this guy doesn't belong there. And the Senate almost rejected him, but Cassidy at the last minute folded. Come on.
Okay, so let's talk about how bad the media is.
Chutzpah.
Yesterday, Jake Tapper went on. Chuck Todd used to host Meet the Press on MSNBC.
Yes, I remember Chuck Todd. Yeah.
And so everybody who loses their job on TV news, they start a podcast. So Jake Tapper, who still works for CNN, and Chuck Todd had an episode, I guess, where among other things, they were bitching about that maybe Joe Biden wasn't a good family man because he ran for president while his son was struggling with drug addiction. Okay, so I did some research. By the time Biden ran in 2020, the kid was clean. The kid, this poor young man, was also 50 years old.
Right.
We were 6 months into Trump, and these guys are busy trashing Biden. And, maybe they have half a point, but what about the current guy?
Yeah, they have no point at all. I mean, the thing is, and Biden was not that bad of a president. The problem is he just got old. Get
old, and that happens. We all get old and everything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, Nick, one of the things you talk about, and I know that Doc, when he's here, he brings it up as well and everything. We talk about a lot of these conflicts, and we're been heavy, and rightfully so, on Israel and its various conflicts, whether that's the Houthi, the Hezbollah, or currently Iran and everything like that, and of course Ukraine and Russia. But there is an Asian country that apparently has been in conflict for a long time too, and we've not been covering it, and nobody else has either. But Thailand has imposed restrictions on all travelers heading into Cambodia as the two countries remain locked in a bitter border dispute. So the ban applies to any vehicle or person trying to cross into Cambodia from checkpoints across several provinces, as well as foreign tourists flying into Siem Reap and everything. So the military said in a statement on Monday that the new restrictions match the current security situation. So bilateral relations between the two countries are at their worst in more than a decade after armed clashes along the border in May left one Cambodian soldier dead. And since then, the two countries have imposed punitive measures on each other. So what's our thoughts around this? Because apparently they're banning imports from each other. So Cambodia has banned imports from Thailand, ranging from fruit and vegetables to electricity and the internet, as well as Thai dramas and films, because apparently they have a rich film community and everything like that.
Yeah, I have a friend that's going to Cambodia, so this is kind of news to me, Mark. I'll have to contact him and see what the story is, because I haven't, like I said, I haven't heard hardly anything. I've been at the NAPTI conference. I did meet with a very nice lady from Singapore that does a lot of, and they just merged with a London company that's been around for 16 years. And they do a lot of production that we might be interested in working with them. But the real problem that we have, as we well know, half the population of the world exists in that area. In other words, in China, India, Cambodia, Thailand, Indonesia, where the United States, we're not even close. We're like a rounding error, seriously, compared to the population of that part of the world. And we don't get much information from it. We really don't.
We get caught up in a lot of that because Thailand had previously implemented similar measures on neighboring Myanmar, and I know Myanmar has been involved in some conflicts. Right. Also home to the thriving scam network that have entrapped thousands of foreigners. So a lot of foreigners are getting caught up in the scam market.
So you have a lot of countries with long ass borders with each other, and you've got a mix of very functional countries like Thailand. Is a highly functional nation that's well known. It's great for tourists. Everybody's super friendly and kiss ass there. And then they're right next to Myanmar, which has military rule and basically crazy rule. They've been crazy for 30 years. And then Cambodia, I don't know. Laos also shares a long border with Thailand. And it's had its terrible times in the past 50 years. It's a complicated, and you're right. We don't pay much attention to it. We have no idea of the geography. And India and China, they have 2.8 billion people.
Yeah,
Right. That's
yeah,
what I'm
they,
saying. It's like
yeah,
half the population of the
yeah,
world.
yeah, and but even a country that has a lot of the population, because I know here we've been talking about immigration and what Trump is doing. I saw that there was uh, a veteran, a longtime veteran that actually had a Purple Heart that just self-deported himself. I think it's in one of the Asian countries and all along those lines. But in the UK, the government is going to be meeting with food delivery companies for talks next week after reports that some asylum seekers are working illegally as couriers within the hours of arriving in the UK. So it's not just here that we're having a problem with folks that are kind of like in that space of trying to
Oh yeah.
find work while working while coming into another country.
It's a world problem, Mark. As a matter of fact, part of the reason, if not all the reason, for Brexit. Remember, the Brits decided to leave the union, is they didn't want the immigrants. Period. You know, it's just like Sasha said, Poland is for Poles only, except occasional Ukrainian. Well, Britain is for Brits only, not all these people from India or wherever Syria or wherever the heck you want to come from. So
Well, yeah, and apparently they have
that's kind of it.
apparently they've got a stiff rule because they say asylum seekers are not allowed to work for the first 12 months of being in the UK or until their asylum application is approved. So they've actually get
Right.
approved, and apparently that's what's going on. Is some of these people have
Yeah.
not been
You
approved,
know,
so they're trying to find some way to live. So whether it's like here, we got people working for Grubhub and DoorDash. There, they're working for things like Deliveroo and Just Eat and Uber Eats. And though they
right.
have strict rules, I guess they're finding ways to get around those rules because they're trying to figure out a way to live for a year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, a lot of the countries also have pay to play. If you got the money, you can come in. You don't have the money, stay at your own home. You know, they just don't want all the stuff.
The UK got radicalized the same way the US got radicalized with MAGA. That right wingers, with the help of a healthy dose of propaganda from Putin. Putin
Right.
loves people being worked up and angry at their own countries. And Brexit, where the UK left the European Union because they were upset that so many immigrants were coming in. That anger was made worse by propaganda, and
Right.
it hasn't gone away. Now the U.S. is 1% Muslim. The UK is 6% Muslim, and I've been in the UK quite a few times. It's no big deal. There's no bad vibe on the street where
Right.
and so they've done surveys that 94% of UK Muslims support British culture, and then you have 6% who are assholes. But that's by far. But anyway, the UK, even though it's under a liberal government right now, they are still competing to see how mean they can be to immigrants.
Well, speaking of being mean and everything, hey, Sasha, I'm assuming by the name of their party that this is a socialist party, so maybe that's why he doesn't get along with Trump and everything. But Mark Rutte is the head of NATO, and they said he's a Dutch politician who has served as the 14th Secretary General of NATO since October of 2024. He previously served as Prime Minister of the Netherlands from 2010 to 2024, and he's leader of the People's Party for Freedom and Democracy. He was the leader of that party from 2006 to 2023. Just the name People's Party implies to me that it's a socialist party and everything like that. But I could be wrong. What do you know about Mr. Rutte and his role in NATO? Anybody here on there and everything like that? So any thoughts on Mr. Rutte and his role in NATO? Because I know he's been trying to negotiate some things with Trump as well.
He's a typical European bureaucrat. He is getting into position, collects his salary and bonuses, and that's all there is until he will be fired or something will happen to him. So there is no sense to spend any time on him.
Fair enough. Like I said, I didn't know much about him. I didn't know if any of our listeners knew much about him. So you're telling us that he's a typical bureaucrat, which we used to have a lot of in the U.S. So I don't know how many bureaucrats are actually in the Trump administration. Nick, we have a lot.
We have tons of bureaucrats. Trust me. In Washington, D.C., it's full of bureaucrats. I mean, people.
I thought that Trump was cleaning them out. I thought that was what
he
he
didn't
was
clean
doing.
enough of them out. I agree with Musk that he didn't clean enough of them. I still have a laundry list of people that just need to get wiped out of that sewer called Washington, D.C., and they haven't done jack to get rid of them. They just hang on to their jobs until the last minute, and the last minute never occurs. So it's just like I said, it's a sewer up there. It's called Washington, D.C. you know, and yeah, Musk tried to get rid of him, but he was not successful. And I don't know, maybe can B-2 bombers hit Washington D.C.? Maybe
Well,
that's not a
come
good
on. So, most people
Yeah.
in most jobs do not spend 9 hours a day like under constant stress making like crucial like not every job needs to be an emergency room doctor, right, where you're constantly like everything's life and death. So I'm sure that the government has hundreds of thousands of employees who go to their jobs, and their jobs are more or less reasonable. They're doing something, but they're jobs in the way that working in a coffee shop is a job where if your coffee shop job is totally stressful all the time, you shouldn't have that freaking job. And ditto, like we think the government is the deep state or is wasteful just because it's full of normal people doing normal jobs who are semi-efficient, but who also take coffee breaks. And maybe you've got 3 people doing jobs where, if you came in and cleaned house, you could maybe get by with 2 people just working harder and but like the whole government is mostly normal people doing normal friggin' jobs in a normal, semi-efficient way.
And all that sounds wonderful, but since you're into data, what percentage of our GDP is generated by the government jobs, Rick?
Probably not much.
But
How about 25% of all our GDP?
No, wait, when you say generated, what do you mean?
In other words, like what we spend on government in the United States.
Okay.
In other words, all the paper pushers in Washington, D.C., and all the communists.
Well, so you're saying we spend, does that include defense and all that other stuff?
Yeah, it includes everything. Because the Defense Department is not sacrosanct. Just because you throw more money at it doesn't mean it's more efficient.
No,
it just meant you throw more money at it. But what's the GDP of the government? I think our GDP is around 30 trillion, and what is it, about 6 or 7 is government?
Okay.
It's huge, So the thing is, if you took the government sector out, which you can't do because it's a huge percentage, but still, what do we need all of that for?
Nick, very simple.
Why do they need people like me? I have to fight these clowns every day of my life.
Simple example. The B-2 are wonderful strategic.
I like the B-2.
They're fantastic.
I love the B-2.
The US made 20 of them, and each one cost anywhere from $2 to $5 billion.
Yeah, but that's money well spent.
Wait, they used 12 of these bombers in the last 3-4 days or so. But they were built about 25, 30 years ago. So what they fired doing 20 bombers for 30 years, except the last 4 days? What they were doing? Why they needed this? They could be 10 maybe.
Sasha, we're spending $1 trillion. We're going to spend $1 trillion
for what?
On defense. Why not, if part of the 200 billion, build like 100 B-2s? But that's not what's going to happen. All that money is going to vaporize in defense spending for paper pushers in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I don't understand one thing. You have Canada, who is opposing U.S. on every single corner or word per word. Why don't you send a few B-2s to Canada with a friendly visit, not a bomb? Friendly visit, they will land in Ottawa or Montreal.
It's because you have the most mismanaged government in the world. It's called Washington, D.C.
But do we really know that? Like, okay, David Walker has a whole show about this.
Yeah, he sits on the Defense Department board.
Right, but David Walker worked for a president who reduced he reduced the size of there was a president who reduced the size of the federal workforce gradually by 30% and balanced the U.S. budget. That was Clinton back in the 90s.
That's correct.
It can be done. And sure, there's inefficiency, but this government of idiots under Trump, they're not capable of doing it. And
That unfortunately is correct.
and other governments like Bush 2 was distracted by this ridiculous frickin' Iraq war. And Obama
there's a beautiful piece of artwork in the Dutch Museum. It's called A Ship of Fools. The Ship of Fools is a group of people in Washington, D.C. that run our government.
All right, one more thing. Obama was so busy being no drama Obama, he avoided confrontation and was constantly getting played by the Republicans. Every president has had his freaking Achilles heel. Clinton had an Achilles penis, like.
True.
And then this current government is nothing but heels.
Okay, I would like to mention something. Trump is on top of his powers right now, because in July there will be an economy report about the jobless claims, and the inflation is going to come up because of the gasoline prices and all the tariffs and all that stuff. So right now, in the next few weeks, Trump is on top of his powers. He will never have more power than he has now today. So why he doesn't conclude deal, let's say, with Greenland, send couple of B2s and say that we would like you to be part of the great America. Same what he is now offering to Iran. He said that Iran will become a prosperous and rich country, make Iran great again. We are with you, America will help you. So do the same thing with Greenland. What's a big deal? Greenland, there are what about 5,000 people or maybe more. Just go and do it. Why you're talking about constantly? Actually, lately he forgot about the Greenland. Why? It's a beautiful, large country, not too difficult to manage because their whole population is sparse between on the south of Greenland because it's cold. So you host. Actually, I think American Air Base is bigger than the whole population of Greenland. Anyway, so just go and do it. It will take you 45 minutes actually to accomplish all that. Why don't you just go out and do it? And then Canada would listen to you, because I just today had very interesting discussion among Canadians whether Canada should join the US or not. So some were opposite, we are patriotic people, we will never do it. Another one says, wait a sec, but what if, let's say, $500,000 of yours in Canadian money will be accepted at par with US dollars? What would you say? I know you're a very patriotic person. Think about having half million Canadian dollars, you would end up with $500,000 US dollars. What do you think you could do? You could buy a property maybe in Florida or somewhere else. You could do something, travel a little bit or so. You can still stay in Canada. You love Canada, you're a patriotic person, but we will have just a little bit more money. So what would you say? And you know what? It worked. The person said, well, you know what? Even if you will exchange only half of my money into US dollars, I will go along with it. So what's your opportunity?
Yeah, doesn't Alberta want to break away? We can get Alberta, right?
So what? Give Alberta US dollars and they will join you in next hour and a half. It's so simple.
Well,
Historically, in Trump's first term, he managed to bullshit his way through the first 3 years. And people, he was chaotic. People left his cabinet, but he muddled along until COVID came along. His great bad luck, our bad luck. It was a once in a century pandemic that shut down the country. And if it was COVID, he might have been reelected in 2020. So he may be able to, right now, he can bullshit right now, and he might be able to continue to bullshit for the rest of his term as president.
Well, speaking of bullshit and everything like that, there is talk, because I saw another article today, and you'll love this one, Nick, because I know you say that it's impossible to do, and it's technically it is, because it's in the Constitution that it can happen. But there is this notion of Trump going for a third term, and that's been floated again. It was floated again today, and everything like that. So, is there going to be a push to try to get King Trump on the ticket and all along those lines? And what is your take on that? Because there is some people that are floating that notion once again of Trump 2028.
No, he's way too old. It ain't gonna happen.
However, and plus it's constitutionally, he'll never get
He's
the
got
changes.
he's got a constitutional
But
issue, age
if
issue.
he's
Forget it.
still at all functional, he will act like either he or one of his kids is running for president, so he can continue to hit his people for 10 million.
Yeah, but
months.
you know, Rick, it really depends on in about a year or so when the midterms head up what the economy's like. I mean, Clinton is right. It's the economy's stupid.
Yeah,
If
but
Americans,
but Trump wants to keep on milking his suckers.
yeah, but
Trump, little
nobody
Barron,
nobody really cares about Trump. Maybe 30% of the population, 40% are independents. The other 30% are Democrats.
I'm just
Okay.
saying he's never going to quit running for something or selling something. Little Baron Trump.
Yeah, he's a real estate dude. He's a real estate salesman from New York. What do you expect?
Little Baron Trump has made $40 million, a 20-year-old kid from Trump crypto.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the thing is,
he's made how much from Trump crypto?
$40
million from Trump. Yeah, we should have Pod TV crypto, Mark. I'm telling you, get your coin here, and we send them the coin. They send us hard American dollars. We're all good. You know?
Sasha will endorse that on Modern Investment.
Yeah, Sasha goes, we have this new coin. It's called Pod TV coin. You send me $100, I give you $100 Pod TV coin. Sasha, I do it every day.
105. How about that?
105. What a deal. You make 5%.
But
right
that
away.
deal is available only today in next 45 minutes.
There you go. There's the countdown, and you show all the people buying it.
45 minutes. If you don't get it now, you're not getting it at all.
It's the biggest scam in the world. The only question is, when is it going to be uncovered?
Yeah,
I get people all the time, you know, especially on Facebook. Oh, are you in crypto? Yeah, I have one crypto coin. My basis is 0, which is what it's worth. Basis means that's how much I spent for you, you know? And I'm not going to invest in a stupid coin like that. Oh, but we trade it and we don't pay taxes. Part of the reason I'm not going to invest in it. You guys are all crooks, you know? So why do I want to? You're asking a tax attorney to get involved in a legal transaction. That's great. Who I believe is also security. Then the SEC hasn't come down on them. No, not interested. And it produces nothing. Gold is a better deal.
No, but gold apparently was crashing earlier today. At least that's what I saw on the market.
It was down a couple percent. It's because I guess gold measures international anxiety.
Yeah, true. Yeah. And, but Sasha, we've had crypto people on your investment show. None of them have been able to demonstrate that's worth it.
By the way, Nick, we lost all of them. Not a single one would appear on my program because all gone when crypto went from 75,000 to 17,000 and people were
they lost all their money.
Short, they lost everything. So they are now driving Uber and some other useful.
That's true.
Yeah.
But some of the new hustlers, everybody's got their own hustles and everything. Hey, Nick, I got a question for you, and for that's actually for everybody, but it's pertaining to North Carolina, but it pertains to the nation and the international crowd as well. Do these protests ever work and everything? Because I just saw that there were hundreds of protesters that showed up earlier today demanding the lawmakers stop a proposed shrimp trawling ban in North Carolina's inland waters because they were saying that it was killing the shrimp industry and the fishing industry here in the area. And apparently they went ahead and voted for what they didn't want them to vote for, and all along those lines. So do these protests ever work? And if they don't work, why do people do the protests? Because I've been part of that. I know friendlies members that have been in these protests, but it doesn't seem like they always work because they make a little bit of noise, but you don't always get your goal. So what is our take on these protests? Because I remember there's the one in Canada with the truckers, and now apparently this one was the seafood folks that were upset about the industry not being protected.
Yeah, well, as a lawyer would say, JD stands for just depends. If they're exercising their First Amendment rights and complaining in a public forum, that's okay. You can do that. We have the First Amendment. If they get in my face and in my way, then they have a problem. And that's the difference. In other words, or if they decide I'm going to stand in the way of a trawler guy who's trying to do his job, then they have a problem. So, it just depends. It's a fact facts and circumstances situation. You know, like I
Well,
said,
they
I
said
am
that
not
many
into
fill
protest.
the atrium of the building wearing shirts that clearly say their position: no troll ban, trucks
Yeah,
with
but
using the same
protest
symbol.
isn't good, solid argument like we're doing here. Protest is a bullying mechanism, no matter how you
And
look at
then
it.
the U.S. isn't set up for national action to work. The biggest protest we ever had started in 1861. It was the Civil War, where half the country was like, we want to keep our way of life, and slavery, and
Right.
the national government, waged war for 4 years to shut that down. And back then, the country was only, that was what, 30 million people. Now we're at 350 million. We're you can't get enough people in the streets to shut down
But but
America.
Rick, but Rick, it attracts the nuts too, because apparently this proposed ban led to a death threat against one of the lawmakers. A Brunswick County man has been charged with threatening to kill a state senator, and the crowd Tuesday was nonviolent, but state representatives didn't hide their anger. So they said this bill is going
Yeah,
to die.
that's a problem, because even if only one person in 500 is dangerously crazy in America, that's 700,000 dangerous
Crazy. Yeah.
Americans.
Yeah. Oh,
But
and
I mean,
also,
this comes down to the whole thing with farming, because whether you're talking about corporate farms versus the small farm, because I know we have Gretchen on, who's a MAGA person and everything, and apparently this argument is recreational fishermen who are the ones that are feeling like they're going to be impacted versus commercial fishermen, and they've been at odds for years. So how are we going to get past this, the notion of the commercial aspect of a business, whether it's farming or fishing, and those that are trying to make it their family business?
What's
yeah, Sergeant.
I would like to come back to the title of the show, The World Politics for June 24, 2025. That's the title. And I would like to stick to the title for the next 12 minutes if possible. Would you allow me, please?
Sasha, waters are international. The ocean is international. So even though I use a North Carolina example, if you study the coast of North Carolina, those are international waters.
Yeah.
So that is a
Sorry
world
to disagree with you, Mark. I do disagree with you. And
I'm
if
sure
you're
entitled to disagree,
running
but I'm
the
just saying that it's a
show,
world
please
politics, it's a
stick
political issue.
to the title. And
But
once
it's
the show
it's
is
world
over, you talk
politics,
about the
and we're
ocean,
talking about
you
an
talk about the
international water.
river, you talk about the other ideas, whatever you want to talk about it. But for this show, I would like you to stick to the title.
Well,
Now, let's talk about
in my
something.
mind, that is
Okay,
a political
hold on,
issue. We
Mark.
can
Okay,
disagree. We can
okay. I
disagree.
heard you. I
We
heard you.
can disagree.
Okay,
But in my mind, this is a
yeah,
world
we
political
disagree.
issue.
Okay, you're right. You're right, Mark. You're right.
Yeah, yeah.
You're right.
100 people in Wilmington, North Carolina is
Well, so
world
I
renowned.
have a story here that is international and
Please.
political. So I'm looking at a map of where Russia is versus Europe, and the deal is that Russia has for years been flooding. We don't hear about it. Has been flooding Europe with bullshit. Here's an article that
No
says
kidding.
last year in 2024 in Germany, the German Foreign Office uncovered a gigantic pro-Russian online disinformation campaign. 50,000 fake user accounts sharing millions of posts a month on Twitter. Some days 200,000 tweets from Russia in Germany. And if you look at a map, you can see that Russia is just flooding in its sphere of influence and beyond. Russia spends $30 million a year bullshitting the Western world, and it's because it would spend more, except bullshit is cheap. And we know that the UK is half crazy, anti-immigrant. I don't know what Russia wants in Germany, but except that I'm sure he wants Germans to be mad at each other. They want far right people to be yelling Nazi stuff. But we can talk about Russia just flooding each of these 30, 40 countries near it with bullshit.
There's a lot of flooding and bullshit and everything like that.
That's about right.
quick questions for you, and then I'm gonna leave it alone because I'm just gonna get to an argument with you on this and everything. How many countries in the world is fishing their number one commodity and their number one industry and everything? I would argue that Russia is a major industry. I would argue that Thailand it is a major industry. I would argue a number of other things. It is a major industry, the fishing industry. So my bringing up a fishing story is global. Point taken. Leave it alone.
Okay, well done.
Point
All right,
point
so-
taken, Mark. Thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
now in terms of Russia, I mean, when I went to Russia, people said you got to watch your pockets, and they were right. And I did get pickpocketed by some two crazy Russians over there. Went to the Russian jails, talked to the Russian police. They find my passport. Oh, how amazing! But you get the smell, the suspected smell. The police were in on the pickpocketing. I mean, you know, there can't be a more culture of corruption. They must raise their kids once they're little babies saying, okay, when you grow up, you're going to become pickpocket, you're going to steal, you're going to lie, you're going to cheat. That must be what they teach you in Russia. I have no clue, but I'm just saying, seeing what the result is, they must train their little children. Oh, you are now Russian. So now here's the thing. You will lie, you will cheat, you will steal anytime you can, everywhere you can, and then you will be true Russian. And we're supposed to love these
But
people.
Nick, is that just Russia? Wasn't there a whole movie made about that in one of the Asian countries and everything? Because I think that's what that particular documentary was about. That related to like it was either Thailand or one of the Asian countries. But I know it's a documentary that featured that kind of concept. So there are
All
a
right,
number.
all right. This is an international tip.
We don't even broadcast into Russia
All
anymore
right,
because they
so
blocked us.
the,
Russia.
it's called pickpocketing. It's got
Yeah.
pocket right in the name. Don't keep anything in your pocket when you travel.
You
Get
know,
one of those
I've learned.
belts that goes under your clothes. Or I keep
Yeah, you wear money belts.
I have long ass socks that go to my knee, right? All my stuff goes,
In there.
under my sock. So to
Yeah.
get at it, they'd have to go up my pants and down my sock.
Right. That's what you got to do. In Barcelona, as beautiful a place it is to live, there are 800,000 pickpockets a year. Okay, seriously. Now, the Spanish government can stop it like that. But you know what? They have a law that they will not go after people unless they pickpocket you more than $400.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
So they
most of
have
them
a
are
limit?
around
I'm
Ramblas.
interested.
Nick, most of them are operate on Ramblas and close streets to them. On Ramblas, you have
Yeah,
to.
I mean, it's amazing. I'm just saying it's a strange, it's a different culture. Like it's just a different culture, and they don't mind pickpocketing. Pickpocketing is like going to the movies, or we're going to pickpocket a bunch of people today. But see, in Russia, I have a strange suspicion because remember they shut us off completely. Okay, they don't want to hear from the West at all. So there's a good chance they're raising their children to be the most corrupt criminals, disgusting people in the world, and then they push them out and they're called Russians.
Well, dude, you had communism for what, 80 years? 80.
Yeah, you're right.
You can't get anything nice unless you steal it under communism.
Yeah, right. I mean, but that's kind of the way it is, and we're supposed to support this regime. Why?
What is the contribution of Russians to the world economy in the last several years? I mean, what is it? Is it arms sales? It's
Oil.
natural
Oil maybe from the
natural resources. It's a corruption and it's a prostitution. That's about it.
Well, what about? I know that you're a fan of the arts. What about the arts and the basketball players? Because there are a couple of Russian basketball players and athletes. I mean, isn't half of the NHL Russian? I mean, I'm being slightly sarcastic, but isn't half of the NHL Russian?
They already have no arts to sell. They don't produce any new arts. The old one, people already either bought it or they saw it in St. Petersburg and Moscow and so on. And okay, so you see it once, you saw it twice, you saw it 10 times. It's like I was in Barcelona my last 5 days of my trip were in Barcelona. Okay, Do you think I ran to see the Gaudi and the Sagrada family or so? I saw it already 2, 3 times ago. So would I go one more time to see it? Absolutely no. I would lie on a swimming pool on the top of my hotel and have cappuccino, later on beer, and then I would go to see the French Open tennis tournament. But I would not go to see the Grada, and I wouldn't go to see the the Gaudia. No, no.
So that's what I'm saying. In your mind, there is no good current Russian art or good Russian
Oh,
athletes or anything like that.
there's nothing. They're pickpockets. They're bandits. They're absolutely vicious people who can only lie. And the only thing what I like about it, they have decent prostitutes. That's about all what they have.
So there's no
Okay,
Russian, no Russian Russian that you like at all.
what you need countries where food is expensive to get prostitutes because they're skinny, they survive on cigarettes, and they don't weigh 185 pounds like they do in America. And they want to get out, so they might be nice to you for a while. If you do a wire transfer for any reason from the US to another country, one of the disclaimer pages is, hey, buddy, you're not sending this to somebody who says she's in love with you, right? It's so
Right.
I mean,
common.
that's a disclaimer. Even if you go get some of those cards that exist in the department stores and the grocery stores, they want to make sure that you're not sending them to somebody else and all along those lines. As I brought up on this show before, there are people around the globe that are literally not getting cash because cash is no longer a king. So they are actually getting cash apps and things like that. Their ways of getting money.
Yeah. So I did look up fishing.
Yes.
Fish provides 1/5 of the protein in 40% of the world's diets. 40%.
Exactly.
So it's huge. And it is an international issue because we're running out of freaking fish because we're overfishing the world. And then global warming, climate change is acidifying the oceans, making it hard and changing the ecozone. So yeah, it's a big freaking deal. Like
It's a
we
global
eat
issue.
fish like it's nothing. 20 years from now, cod. Cod used to be trash fish. Now you get a chunk of it, it might be $40. Sasha has it.
Okay. In 2014, the Chess Olympiad was in Norway, and my wife was playing there, and I spent about 3 weeks in Norway. By the way, in Tromsø, which is the north of Norway.
Yeah, Tromsø. Yeah.
And remember, Norway is a very rich country. The tournament was well organized. Everybody loved it, except one thing. We had fish 3 times a day. It was prepared by a million different ways. It was tasty. It was fantastic. But when you have the same thing over and over and over, sometimes we would go and just bought ourselves some decent dinner, some meat products or something like this, just to get rid of the fish. And it reminds me another tournament which we had in Malaysia, Genting Highlands. In Malaysia in July, so we had just some T-shirts or something. Genting Highlands, it's up about 6,000 feet. It's quite cold there. And the food for 28 days, it was nothing but Chinese food. The best ever Chinese food you can eat. But when you have it for 28 days, without anything else, the first thing when we arrived to Amsterdam, the first thing what I bought is a cheese sandwich because there was no cheese, there was no cheese sandwich, there was not even bagels or any bread, nothing. So it was impossible.
The very fancy food
Anything
lobster. Lobster used to be trash food. So trashy that it was fed to prisoners in prison. Here's your freaking lobster. When America first became a country, there were 6-foot lobsters you could pull out of the ocean. Lobsters that had been alive for 85 years, and then we fished them down. The biggest lobster you get is this. Anyway, cod production worldwide down more than 33% in the past 10 years. So yeah, we are fucking up the fish, and we'll have to learn how to farm fish better in the future.
Yeah, that's true. And on that note, we're going to get on out of here. So, Nick, if you'll take us on out, I know I've got the other show.
I'm working on it, but I think I found the way. The truth, the light is goodbye.